Welcome one and all to the show. Wired up, fired up, and ready to go. It is episode 39 of the BlueTruth podcast, New York Rangers Talk with Brian Attard, powered by the Sports Box Network. Like and follow on the Facebook page, Twitter, and on Instagram. Thank you to those who are watching tonight's show live on the live stream. If you're happening to catch the YouTube replay, that's great too. We appreciate that. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Maybe you'll join the live stream one of these episodes. Tonight is Tuesday, February the 27th, 2024. And before we get into the crux of tonight's show, and there's a lot to talk about, obviously, I just want to take one quick second, first things first, and just let you know that I am just so humbled by you guys. BlueTruth, the Facebook page, has broken the 8,000 follower mark on the Facebook page just 30 days after we broke the 7,000 follower mark. And the growth has been immense. As of today, we're actually over 8,500. So between a couple days ago and now, it's been another 500 follows. And it's just nuts to me. It really is. It's been remarkable. I can't thank you all enough for the support. You make all of this that I do very fun. So thank you. I owe you a debt of gratitude, and I'll continue to, again, as I mentioned the other day, hopefully you find the memes funny, the news is newsworthy, and the shows like this keep you coming back, because I definitely, love the interaction with all of you. Tonight, we find ourselves just 10 days away from the 2024 trade deadline. There'll be a lot to talk about there as far as what the Rangers might do, what they might not do, and why. Tom Scavetta from Review and Preview joining the show later on to talk a little Rangers with us, but we will start tonight with the fact that with one game left in the month of February, the Rangers have only lost one game in the month of February. If I had a dime for every game the Rangers lost between January 27th and February 24th, I would have 0 dimes. On the last show at the start of February, we noted that the Rangers were 5-7-2 in the month of January, and that they needed the goaltending to be a little bit better, a lot better actually at the time. Well, counting the last game of January, which was a win in Ottawa right before the break, the Rangers proceeded to rip off franchise record tying 10 straight wins before the loss to Columbus on Sunday night. And big part of the streak was, to no surprise, a resurgence by goaltender Igor Shesterkin, reminding us all of what he is capable of when he is on. When we looked at this in the early part of this month, we said very clearly that the way that the Rangers are built, they're not going to be a shot suppression team the way Carolina is. They're not going to suddenly, become this defensive stalwart, and that they needed their all-world goaltender to be an all-world goaltender. And for the most part, coming out of the break, that's exactly what he's been. He's one of, if not the best in the world. And for the Rangers to do anything, that is exactly who they need him to be. David Voorhees, trade deadline can't get here fast enough. Ken Lewis Kimmel. I love the new names, guys. I can't tell you how much fun that is. I love the old names. I love the names that have been here from day one, but seeing new names is awesome. Kevin Kimmel, I want Petrano back. Kind of saying bring back Tarasenko. Shesterkin seeing beach balls. Tyler Boyd matches the name of a Cincinnati Bengal. Don't trade away young talent. High draft picks doesn't work for the Rangers in so long. We'll talk about that. Dennis Columbus got 2 or 3 lucky goals. We'll talk about that. You look back at some of Igor's performances coming out of the break, and it was really just remarkable, right? So the 2-0 shutout against Calgary, absolutely stellar. Best game he had played in a long time. They took when they played Calgary, which is why when Quick started the next game, people kind of like, you might want to let him, get in the rhythm. The Stadium Series game. Now, the first period was rough, but I think that was a combination of things. Like, you really look at it, right? Team came out flat, that we know. I mean, they had that first goal from Gustafsson, and then they just, had that mental lapse. But that environment is just so different for goaltending. You're outdoors, there's the daylight. Like it's not what you're used to. So I think, which I am not a goalie, I don't play one on TV, but I would assume that makes it so much harder to track the puck. So, we'll talk more about the Stadium Series game in a bit, but he really did play a fantastic game after the first period. Almost, just what can you say? The game against Dallas, unbelievable. Absolutely stole the game for the Rangers against an excellent Dallas Stars team, who many people think might be the team that comes out of the West. The Devils game was very good again. Almost had the shutout. I think that the Rangers got, a little cute at the end trying to get Lafreniere the hat trick. But listen, hell of a performance. The Flyers game, I was there. Rangers looked a little out of sorts offensively for most of that game. Like you started to see like the gears kind of slow down from this winning streak. And the goal that they scored, I think it was Tyson Forster. The goal that they scored, they really didn't have a chance. That wasn't a goal that you'd say, oh, you should have had that one, right? So, really he was the primary reason that the Rangers won the game in Philadelphia. And like that's the difference, right? When you look around the Eastern Conference and you look at the teams that are going to make the playoffs, other than maybe Andre Vasilevsky in Tampa Bay, like is there a goalie in any of these teams that you see in the East that can be the primary reason that their team goes on to win something? Now, having said that, if the Rangers become the Rangers that played against New Jersey in the playoffs last year from games 3 to 7, then, any goalie looked like Martin Brodeur. But they have this advantage over basically every other team in the East. And it goes back to what we said in episode 38, the last show earlier this month. For the Rangers to have any shot of taking this baby home in June, they need Igor to be Igor. It is that simple. And he has looked the part as of late. I don't think there's a team you look at and you say unequivocally that the Rangers can't beat. When you combine the landscape of the Eastern Conference having no true dominant team, no true, there's no way they can beat them team, the demographics of the roster, specifically the age at the top end of the forward group, and the goaltender being the goaltender, I don't know how on earth some of you don't think the Rangers should be really aggressive at the deadline and go for it, and we'll talk a lot about that, more on that in a bit. But as far as them losing to Columbus, as it turns out, it is really difficult to win 11 games in a row. Team never done it in almost 100 years. So, what are you going to do? First loss on a back-to-back this year. It was their 5th game in 8 days. Like you can't win every game. Is it annoying to lose to Columbus? Sure. It was also their first loss of the month of February. Listen, we are as consistent can be on BlueTruth, and we've said from day one that nothing this team does in the regular season in the grand scheme of things is really going to matter. It's just not. April, May, and June is what's going to matter. They are a legitimate Stanley Cup contender, so making the playoffs is a given. It's not an accomplishment. Half the league gets in. I say all that to say this. The team won 10 games in a row for the 3rd time ever. They lose a road game on the second half of a back-to-back, their 5th game in 8 days, and people complained. They could go 81-0-1 and lose in a shootout, and people will complain. It is what it is, and people never change. But as for us, people who watch this show, we're a little more pragmatic. We approach these things with a sense of poise and rationality, and we know this is all a countdown to game 83. Streak was great and all, Not upset about it. But I think that you need to take it for what it is, right? I mean, the same people that will pound their chest and say, oh, how great they are, and at the same time get mad when they lose the game number 11. Like there's a happy medium there, I guess, if I can say nothing else. So you can't, you just can't, get yourself there. All right. Let me get to some of these comments here because I don't want to forget anybody here. Tyler Board, you could tell the goalies weren't seeing the puck in the beginning of the stadium game again. And I agree with you. I think that played a real role. Look, and again, I think somebody here said it. Sorokin is just as good. And the Islanders aren't making the playoffs because the Islanders are absolutely terrible. We'll get to that in a minute, Dave. But Sorokin is just as good. And he lit up 6, right? So it's not as if what Igor did in the outdoor game was like, oh, Igor's, struggling. One of those people there watching it was like 80. I was there. It was great. We'll talk about that. That's just a bit. Kind of that Dallas game was a statement win. Yes, it was. And we'll talk about a little bit. I mean, you go back and look, and we're going to talk about advanced stats here in a sec, but you go back and look at the breakdown of that game. Igor stole them that game. And that's what he can do. And that's what the Rangers have. This advantage that they have over other teams is that they have a goaltender who can do that. Other teams shelter their goaltender. Not the Rangers. That's for sure. Miller has his moments where he shit down and gets offense, loses his position. Young player. He'll be fine. PJ, what's up, brother? How are you? Kevin, Boston tandem pretty good. But it's a tandem, Kevin. It's a tandem. And if you have 2 goalies in hockey, you have no goalies in hockey. Because I'll tell you something right now. As good as Quick has been, he's not getting a playoff game. Igor's your guy, right? So, what do you do what's Boston do in the playoffs? And I think that that's a storyline to watch for sure. John, they need Kakko and Laugh to have good playoffs too. I mean, Lafreniere is having a great year. He's having a great year. Tyler Boyd says Florida plays a tough, fast game, bad matchup. Dave says Panthers best team in the conference. Guess what? That's the 3rd round. Let's get there. Kevin, our 4th line looks good neither in the playoffs. We're going to talk a little bit about that. There is no monster team. I say let's go all in. There's Lou on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it. All you need is a goalie to elevate their game come playoffs like Florida did last year. Yeah, but from an innate talent perspective, ours is the best. He just is. And that is a wonderful strength. Tom Scavetta, who'll be joining us in the 9:30 area of the show. Need to go all in. This may be our year, and I'm going to ask him about that as to what he thinks they should do at the deadline because we're going to get there. John, the question is, will you trade top prospects for a cup? Forget the future. Now is our best shot. We'll talk about that. Kevin, fickle. That's a great word. I love that word. Fickle is exactly how to explain these people. Brett Anderson got my reference, so I appreciate that. True story. I actually met Panic at the Disco at a hotel in St. Louis when I was out there for work. True story. Should the bet against Columbus and against Boston or Florida who are competing for seeding? I agree. They should dismantle the Islanders. Would you want anyone from that roster? Islanders stink. I mean, they're not giving us Brock Nelson, but he'd be a nice little addition. Brian Fogelstrom, like you said, nothing to do about the Columbus game. Team was exhausted with that. We got outskated. Physicality. Outside of the Rempe fight was non-existent. Hate to see it, but can't fault them for it. Again, it's fine. It's all right. Kevin, it's all about peaking at the right time. Don't care about the last 2 months. Completely agree. Boris says they don't trade Kakko. I don't think that they do. Dimitri, what's up, brother? How are you? I worry about the Toronto Maple Leafs. Our brand of hockey allows 35-plus shots on goal that won't cut it versus the Leafs in the 2nd or 3rd round. The Leafs are not getting out of that. Honestly, the Leafs are a wonderful regular season team. There's a reason they've won 1 round in 20 years. So, again, as I mentioned, the streak was great. But let's take a little bit of a look under the hood of this car that we're driving. Now, as I always preface discussions about the advanced stats, I don't expect all of you to subscribe to these and take them as gospel or any of that. I'm not saying that I do either. But I do think they serve a purpose. So for those who rely on the eye test, I think you'll find more often than not that the advanced stats tend to confirm what you're seeing with your eyes, but they put some numbers behind your intuition. Steve Alkin has some detractors out there, some that I know very well. I don't know if Sean's watching, but Sean's a good guy. That's all right. It's fine. But I want to show you this chart from the 10-game streak. And you can kind of see, I think, what's going on as well. So I just want to put this up here. I'm gonna get this comment down. Okay. So here's a measure of what's called expected goals. Now you're going to say to yourself, well, Brian, what the hell does that mean? What's an expected goal? Well, at a base level, you would probably agree that a shot from the point is less likely to go in than a shot from the slot, right? Okay. So a shot from the slot is more likely to go in as a goal than a shot from the point. And the more shots that you get from the slot versus the point, the more goals you're expected to score. It's simple, right? Okay. Over the 10-game winning streak, you will notice from this chart that the Rangers were outchanced by their opposition by the count of 312 to 269. Doesn't sound great, does it? You don't really need this chart to tell you this. You already know this. You know they've been outshot often. In the 10 wins, the Rangers were outshot the other team 3 times. Tampa by 6, Chicago by 4, and Calgary by 2. The other 7 games, they were outshot. But here's what the chart is showing. They are getting more high danger chances than their opposition, 84 to 72. Those are, as our boy AV used to say so eloquently, the grade A chances. Those are the ones that you want to get and the ones you want to stop your opponent from getting. Those mid-danger chances were dead even, 57 all. But here's where the story is for me. Look at those low-danger chances. Let me put that back up. I don't know why it just died out on me. 59% of chances that the Rangers allow are considered low-danger chances, while 31% of the chances the Rangers get are considered high-danger chances. So yes, it's true that some of those shot totals may seem out of whack sometimes. But if they're relatively easy saves, do you really care? So, the Rangers, again, they're not built to be the shot suppression team from a volume standpoint, the way Carolina is. And for as much maligned as the Rangers defense is, I see the Trouba sucks, Miller sucks, everybody sucks. They did a really nice job during the 10-game streak of keeping those high danger chances low and allowing the opposition to take low danger shots. You would take this trade-off all day long. Let the other team accumulate shots from the point. Who cares? Keep the grade A's down and you'll be in great shape, especially when you've got Igor Shesterkin in net. Carolina doesn't have Igor Shesterkin in net. Their goaltending's not good, so they make up for it by playing really, really tight team defense and keeping as many pucks away from their goaltender as they can, because they can't trust their goaltender to stop much of anything. He's not Igor Shesterkin. If you allow the majority of what Igor faces to be the easy save, when he's on, is he going to stop everything? No, things happen, but he surely will stop a lot. So, will they get outshot? Sure. Especially probably in third periods if they have the lead, because they're not going to be as aggressive. They're going to try to play a little bit more defense. It's not really their game, right? You got to play to your strengths. But if they're going to allow the shots against to be really, really low danger, I'm not concerned about that. I think they'll be just fine from that standpoint. Let's see, I agree. Dmitry Yanovsky, at least when they acquire some of the deadline, they have no cap space. Dmitry, none. Like, they're not. All their money is just tied up. Like, I don't know what they do. PDO's good. Again, you can't look at all of these analytics, to my opinion, Kevin, in and of themselves. I think that they all tell a bit of the story. And when you bring them together, again, and many times the numbers validate your eye test. They put some meat behind what you think. Bob, I worry about Rempe the next 2 games, possibly fighting tomorrow versus Columbus, Toronto with Reeves in the lineup. He does fight quite a bit. Flyers up 3-1. Who the hell cares? Team stinks. They're a 5-game out in the first round. I'd love to play the Flyers. No goaltending. Torts is torts. Rempe's ice roll nearly shut me to avoid dropping the gloves for a few days. So Frank's talking, it's called puck control. Well, yeah, but again, if you're leaving, if you're protecting the house, man, if you're keeping those shots to the outside, your goalie's going to stop most of what he sees. So like again, it's hard to say that these shot counts, especially, it just doesn't mean the shots don't mean anything if they're low. How many times do the Rangers have shots where it's like right in the logo of the goaltender? Oh, great shot. We see it too. When their offense is not clicking and they're just getting shots towards the net. Dimitri, good point about high-low danger chances. So I guess as long as we keep the opponent to the outside, we should be okay. They're just lower risk shots. I mean, you may have some the deflection is considered to be, I guess, an expected goal or where the puck hits something, but obviously if you're allowing a bunch of high danger chances, then you're just making your goalie work and things are going to go wrong. So keep him to the outside, let him fire. Odds are that he'll be stopped. I agree. Mike Freese, what's up, brother? Joining a little bit late. That's okay. We're on demand. You know that. Let's go Rangers. And there's Nick Arena. Good evening. Peter, I'd like both, but would you rather a first line right wing or a third line center? Please throw some names out there. We're coming. Hold that thought. Rangers need to be all in 1 year. Cups is for 40. Yeah, we'll talk that through. Detroit's looking good. Again, nobody in the East scares me. Nobody in the East scares me. Rangers need to be all in at the deadline. We'll talk. We'll look. Okay. So again, in summary, if the Rangers are going to get outshot because of a bunch of low risk shots against, I am fine with that. I am not concerned with the under the hood metrics. Shots on goal is a bit of a lazy thing in this day and age anyway, so is plus minus for that matter. But if you can get 31% of your chances to be high danger and allow only 23% of your oppositions to be worrisome, that is a great trade-off, which is a wonderful segue. The trade deadline is March 8th. What do the Rangers need? What will the Rangers do? So let's talk about this. They're 10 days away. They're 10 days away from the deadline, and I see, and this is a theme, guys, because I see it. I'm active in a lot of the groups sharing the wonderful news of BlueTruth. That's why our follower count's so great. And I see my fair share of just really asinine comments, to be frank, that they shouldn't go out there and bring in help, that they should keep each and every single 5th and 6th round draft pick and C-level prospect in the system and trade nobody other than their star players because they're no good. And the team is awful and they need to do a whole new rebuild. And meanwhile, they're like right at the tippy top of the whole goddamn league. And I will continue to have no idea where these people are coming from. I don't know what they're watching. The Rangers are absolutely, without question, going to be aggressive at the deadline. And to think otherwise is you're just not paying attention. Point blank. They want to win a Stanley Cup. They think they have a team that can do it. They will act accordingly. The silver lining of Heedle's injury is the cap space that's now open for moves. Emily Kaplan of ESPN noted on Saturday during the Flyers game, which I watched the replay because obviously I was there, the Rangers will not be trading Othmann. They won't be trading Perreault. Full stop. Any discussions that have come up around either Perreault or Othmann have been just shut down immediately, reportedly. So for those of you concerned that the Rangers are going to, really empty the cupboard and trade the Amontes and the Doug Waits the way they did in 94, you can breathe a bit. Now, me personally, Perreault, untouchable. Great. I think that he fell to them. Gift from heaven. We'll take it. I would not hesitate to move Brennan Othmann in the right deal. It has to make sense. But everybody knows what the Rangers need. It's pretty obvious. They need a top line right wing. They need a third line center. There is no way you can have a true cup contending team that has Jimmy Vesey on the first line, right? It's like zero shot of this. And they know it. They know it, and everybody else knows it. Jennifer, how are you? Good to see you over the weekend. Dave looks like Eberle and Henrique are, they're going to miss Wheeler in the playoffs. PJ wants Vladdy. Kevin, Rangers fans overrate their Rangers fans really overrate their prospects. Yes, I would agree with that. The amount of times Adam Sikora. Adam Sikora is like a third line winger. Like I don't know where all of this comes from. Like people just like get enamored with this. I don't know why. John, definitely aggressive. Got a gift to get. Rangers fans overvalue mid-range prospects. I agree. Not we have salary cap discussions out. People, why don't go get this guy? Who cares? He makes $12 million. Othmann can go for the perfect deal. Othmann's untouchable. Parker Beard. Oh, that was you. Hey, bud, how are you? That's pretty funny. So I was leaving the Flyer game and somebody stopped me and they said, "Hey, are you the guy in the commercial?" I said, "Yeah, I am." That's pretty cool. I didn't know that was you, Parker. It was a pleasure to meet you, my friend. Yeah, it was a great game. It was a great game. Eddie, what's up, brother? How are you? Josh, hey, how are you? Charlie Troy says, "Don't sell A-plus prospects or any of the youth off the roster. You're getting an elite player with cost control term on their contract." Well, let's talk here. So I made the case a week ago on the BlueTruth page where, I said that when Johnny Brodzinski signed that 2-year extension, that the top wing at that point was just a far more pressing need than a third line center, right? And it wasn't because I was overjoyed that the team would go into the playoffs with this idea that Brodzinski is your third line center, but he has shown the ability to play the role. Whereas you can't just have Jimmy Vesey on line one and be a serious team. You just can't, right? So they need both things, but they need the winger more than the center. I think if they were stuck, if they wouldn't meet the prices for the centers and they went more towards the wing, I would be fine with that because you need a better top line wing, whether it's Kakko and the guy for the third line or flip it. They need to address that, and I think that they will. They want a center. They're willing to acquire a center. They're willing to pay for a center. But I think that you're not over a barrel the way you were when it was Nick Bonino as your third line center or Barclay Goodrow. Like, these are not guys that you really want in that role. So, who will they get? I think that is anyone's guess. And I think that they have interest in plenty of guys depending on what it costs and what cap retention they can get. Adam Henrique, Anthony Duclair, Vladimir Tarasenko, Jordan Eberle, Frank Vetrano, Alex Wenberg, Scott Lawton. Like, they've been linked to all of these players to some extent at some point. Sean from Two Guys, One Cup, which you really should be following because they're wonderful, the great Ranger content. If you're not following them, take my advice. It's free. He made the great point that other than Patrick Kane, what Rangers linked trade target have they ever actually brought in other than Patrick Kane under Chris Drury, right? So, maybe they're getting none of these guys. Who knows? But in any event, I want you to consider a different angle to this because this is, I think, the angle that nobody's talking about. Everyone keeps talking about adding players with not really accounting for the fact that, well, if you add, you must subtract. People have gotten enamored with Adam Edstrom and to a deeper level, Matt Rempe. Big players, physical. Rempe's been fighting every game, but there's only so many chairs to sit in when the music stops. Right now, their first line right wing is Jimmy Vesey. Well, I know Kakko was taking reps there. The third line center is Johnny Brodzinski. If they acquire a winger or a center, more likely both in my opinion, then that's going to send Vesey and Brodzinski down to the fourth line. So at that point, when the music stops, Rempe and Edstrom don't have chairs. So we'll look at the lines here as to what I think they're going to look like. So right now, you get Kreider and Zibanejad. You assume your new winger plays top line. That's my guess. Unless it's Kakko. Maybe it is, but let's just assume they go big game hunting. Why does it keep doing that? Okay, I'm going to have to keep doing it. Panarin, Trichik, Laffy doesn't change. So you get your new center for Kakko and Hedl. I mean Cooley, and then Brodzinski, Goodrow, Vesey fall to the fourth line. What you notice there is no Adam Edstrom and there is no Matt Rempe, right? So there's your basic math that a lot of people are not going to like. There are 12 forward spots on a hockey team. If they don't trade players off the roster, then two players have to come off the roster to fit in your new winger and your new center. Are they going to sit Jimmy Vesey for Rempe? Probably not. Could Brodzinski be the 13th guy? Maybe. It's possible. Wouldn't rule it out. But there's no way to add players to the lineup and not remove players from the lineup. The people who, they love what Matt Rempe's doing. And he sure is making a name for himself. Give the kid full credit. Like, everybody knows who Matt Rempe is. Nobody knew who Matt Rempe was 2 weeks ago. No doubt about it. Well, who sits? Like, if you can only start 12 guys, so who sits? And we'll touch on Rempe real quick. It's a great story. Likely to be a short story, unfortunately. But anyway, but that's how you get these type of guys, right? You don't trade third-round picks to Vegas and sign Ryan Reeves to a multi-year extension. You draft them low, you pay them nothing, and then it's a great value. Real nice story for the time. He has a role for the time being. We'll see what that is after the deadline. Good for the kid. Good for the kid. There's so many different comments. I'm going to try to get to some of these here. Parker, you had a podcast that it was that's cool, man. That is really cool. We'll figure that out one of these days. I'll be at the Garden on Wednesday with Tom, who's going to be on in just a little while. But that is kind of funny. Small world, right? John says, if I had to, I would choose take the wing over the center. Peter wants the top right wing. PJ's priority number 1 and 2. No more selling top prospects or 1 picks for a rental. Sal, the 1 pick means nothing to them. Their first round pick means nothing to them. It just doesn't. So yeah, they're going to make a move. I would be shocked if they had their first round pick in 10 days. I really, 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 really would. Kevin, Othmann's movable in the right deal. Is it a position of strength? I agree. Although, what I will tell you is I think Othmann starts off on the right side next year unless they flip Cooley to the right side. That's a discussion for June. Ryan, what's up, buddy? How are you? Make sure I try to get all these comments, at least as much as I can. Parker, the team needs a winger to go with Kreider and Zibanejad. Yes, absolutely. No one thinks Chris Tanev. Well, Dave, they have 6 defensemen, so who are you getting rid of? And you can't tell me you're going to get rid of Keandre Miller because they're not going to get rid of Keandre Miller unless they're getting a Chychrun in a trade, which is not going to happen. So they're not going to sit Miller to play Tanev. You're not going to sit Gustafsson, who's been a revelation. There's just no spots. They're not really looking at their defense. Could they add a 7th guy for depth? Yeah, sure. That's 2 guys, 1 cup. They're on Twitter. They're on Facebook. They're great. You can find them. In fact, if you look them up, if you look up 2 guys like the number 2 guys, the number 1 cup Rangers podcast, you will find them. Dimitri, if you can't, DM me. I'll get you the link. They're awesome for sure. Rich, you need some sort of physicality in the playoffs. Rempe should stay. Unfortunately, VC or Broad would sit. Well, I think VC's not. He's not a non-factor, but Rangers lose the number 1 trade targets. Waiting too long to pull the trigger. We got 10 days. Bob, we got 10 days. We're okay. If anything, Bob, I'll give you that. Sometimes you're better off being the last guy to get the guy on sale, right? To get the guy that nobody traded. So, just saying. I don't know. The problem with Buchnevich is he's got a year. The term. It's the same problem with Vetrano, which we'll get to in a second, by the way. When you get guys with term, now you're not just talking about now, you're talking about the future, and that makes a difference. Wow, that's really cool. So you were up from North Carolina for the game. Range Flavor Arena Sunday. Tried it 3. Dude, that's really cool. That's awesome. Kudos to you, man. That is awesome. Lou, you're calling with Brodzinski to playoff laps that are grabbing another 4th line wing? Yes, because I think he can play just fine. I think he's done fine. I can put him on the 3rd line. I'm fine. If they cannot get a center, I'd be okay with it. Your mouth to God's ears, butter. Your mouth to God's ears. All right. Now, again, I am sure that they'll get people who say, oh, go sit Zibanejad or Kreider. Yeah. Need to live in the real world, okay? And on this show, we live in the real world. It's not called Blue Lies, okay? You know what I mean? So we call it like it is. So in that same line of thinking, and I alluded to this, any move you make for a guy with term impacts next year too. So with Tarasenko, they can't get Tarasenko with any sort of salary attention because he was on there last year. CBA prevents it. So if you're getting him, you're getting the full contract. That's probably cost prohibitive. Keep in mind, though, you'll probably see Brendan Othmann play next year. So if you bring in a Frank Vetrano or a Buchnevich, a guy with term next year, someone's got to be moved. Process of elimination says that's probably Capo Caco. The point is, I'm not saying it can't happen, but I'm saying there's levels to this. When you get guys with term, it changes things. It starts to bleed over into next year and change those plans next year. And I joke around about it, with posts here and there that too many people just have no idea how the cap works. The cap's not even that complicated, but they say they want this guy and that guy. And any second grader with a calculator can tell you that it can't happen. They want to trade guys with no movement clauses. And they think of ways to get around the no movement clauses. Oh, well, if you put Kreider on the third line, he's going to want to leave. I'm like, no. It's mind-numbing. Mind-numbing. We need to be better as a base, frankly. And that's part of why I started BlueTruth a couple of years ago. We have fun, but I like to think that you get a little more informed along the way. Not that I know everything, but I like to make sure that I know as much as I possibly can about these sorts of things. So if and when the Rangers do something of note, we will be talking about it. We're in the last 10 days now, the home stretch. Something is going to happen. And I'd say two things are going to happen. Maybe a depth defenseman makes three things are going to happen because Zach Jones just ain't it. You can't have too many defensemen. Somebody probably wants a physical guy. Zach Jones ain't it. So you should fully expect the New York Rangers to be active in the next 10 days, looking to make moves to hopefully improve the team going into the playoffs. Not all trades work out. Some you look back and say, well, that didn't work out. Today is 6 years ago to the day yesterday that Ryan McDonagh and JT Miller were sent to Tampa Bay. Many people have a lot of thoughts about this. Mostly not positive. The Rangers' return in that deal was Namestnikov, Libor Hayek, Brett Howden, a 2018 1 and a 2019 2. The 2018 1 was used on Nils Lundqvist, who was subsequently traded to the Dallas Stars for the pick that became Vladimir Tarasenko. Carl Henriksen was taken with the 2. Now, it is easy to look back and get mad. But look at the pieces at the time. Namestnikov was having a career year when he was traded to the Rangers. 20 goals in 62 games. Brett Howden was the 27th overall pick in 2016 for Tampa Bay. Libor Hayek was 37th overall for Tampa Bay in 2016. They were two of Tampa's top prospects at the time. At the time, people looked favorably on the deal. Hayek was a hot name, actually. It is what it is. But let me give you an alternative point of view. Consider this. At the time McDonagh was traded, the Rangers were obviously going into a rebuild. The letter came out not too long before that. He was 28 when he got traded. There's a year left on his deal. And in Tampa, he signed a 7-year, $42.5 million deal, which after they won a couple asterisk Stanley Cups, which I would take in a heartbeat, the deal became largely the disaster that everyone thought it was going to be. The Rangers did the right thing moving on from Ryan McDonagh, regardless of the trade compensation. There is a value to cap space and a value to protecting you from yourself, to not sign a bad deal just because you don't want to risk losing a guy. The Rangers giving McDonagh the contract that Tampa did would have been an abject disaster for them. And the really easy analogy is Ryan Callahan. Think back to Ryan Callahan. Callahan was the captain, traded to Tampa, just like McDonagh was. The Rangers at that time were hesitant to give Callahan the money, so they traded him. And in many ways, that's kind of what happened with Ryan McDonagh. You can say they didn't get enough for him and JT Miller, and we'll get to Miller in just a second. But at the time the deal was made, they got a lot of value. The value just didn't pan out. Maybe Jeff Gordon fell in love with the wrong prospects. They were highly touted at the time. So, look, JT Miller was someone the Rangers obviously were willing to move off of at age 24. But it wasn't as if he went and lit the world on fire in Tampa either. He was then traded to Vancouver, where then he finally put it all together by the time he was 28. So everyone points to Miller as the one that got away, but nobody thought 4 years ago, or 4 years from when we actually figured it out, that he would be this good, right? He's 30 now, by the way. Tampa didn't think he was a fit either. So it wasn't just us, right? Was the return great? Time says no. You can't argue that. The players, they thought they would turn into something, didn't turn into much at all. But on the bright side, they didn't get stuck in a bad contract, which would have had a longer net negative effect. Cap space, saving yourself from making a bad investment, there's value to both of those things. So, frankly, arguably, the Rangers made a mistake in signing Dan Girardi to the deal they signed, given his style of play. And somebody made the comment, Charlie Troy, It's these experiences that make everybody so nervous about what Ryan Lindgren might sign for this offseason. The style of play he plays, like Callahan, like Girardi, like McDonagh, doesn't bode well for a long career. So you're right to be concerned. And Parker, I'm not saying Tampa didn't win the trade. You win the trade after the fact, because the things that you can only make the deal at the time of what value am I getting for what I'm giving away. If they didn't think Miller was going to pan out here and they were going to get rid of McDonagh, they got a bunch of lottery tickets that none of them won. Okay. They took volume. It didn't work out. At the end of the day, it is what it is. Iris says with trade Lafreniere, I don't know that at all. He's having an unbelievable season. I mean, he's putting it together. I don't like that at all. Let's see. Do you think they should make a big deal? Go after Henrique and Vetrano on one, give up La for Kakko? No and no. Because if you give up Kakko and you get Vetrano, you still need a right wing. What does that accomplish? Nothing. JT Miller thinks it's a fluke year. I think he's a good player, but he's also 30 now. So, you could trade Goodrow if Goodrow allows you to. He has negative equity. He is an underwater house. Like, his contract is literally a negative. You have to pay someone off to take the contract. So, yeah. But again, I just want to it happened 6 years ago, and that was that. I just want to touch quickly before we bring on our special guest, Tom Scavetta, who I know can't wait to get on and talk Rangers with us. I just want to touch really quick on the Stadium Series. That was a lot of fun. It wasn't always a lot of fun, but it ended up being a lot of fun. Despite the fact that it was billed as a road game for the Rangers and a home game for the Islanders, that was a very pro-Rangers crowd, to say the very least. And I think to say 15 to 20% of that crowd were Islander fans is really being quite generous on my part. Any and all pro-Islander anything was met with very loud boos. Okay. Having been at the games at Yankee Stadium, it was awesome that the Rangers got to play the goal song, despite being the road team designated. That was a lot of fun to have 80,000 people singing the goal song. That right there was completely worth the price of admission. Total blast. At the end of the day, though, truly, it's just a regular season game. It's 2 points, nothing more from a hockey standpoint. And I'm probably the biggest the regular season doesn't matter guy there is, because I am. But I will also acknowledge that the game in and of itself, the way the game went down, the comeback in the third, the late goal to tie it, the OT winner, it was all magical. It was wonderful. We'll never forget it. And you know who will also never forget it? All 12 Islanders fans. Because those sad sacks of shit were ready to dance the night away if they beat the Rangers in that setting. And they were on their way to doing just that. And then it was taken from them. And they'll never forget it. Those abominations of jerseys that they wore, the idiots who bought those jerseys will never wear them again. You want to know why? Because they're a constant reminder of when the Rangers came back and beat them in MetLife Stadium on national TV. Good. Hey, by the way, the last time that the Rangers won an outdoor game against the Islanders, they found their way into the Stanley Cup Finals. Food for thought. So, I would like to bring on a special guest, good friend of mine. He's actually going to be going with me to the game tomorrow night. I just want to set myself up and take off all of my solo things here. There we go. Tom Scavetta from Review and Preview joining BlueTruth. Tom, how are you, buddy?
What's going on, Brian? How's it going?
Living the dream.
Happy to be here.
Living. If I were any better, I'd be you.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're all rangered up. I appreciate that.
I am.
Let me get your thoughts right now. So, a lot of people, they look at a team at the top of the Eastern Conference. Some think that's good. Some think that doesn't really matter. Some think that that's a sign they should be making trades. Some think they should go with what they got. Where are you right now? Where are you on this team pre-deadline as it currently stands?
Well, a lot of the folks in the comments have been saying it tonight. A right wing is definitely needed. I don't know who specifically they'll target. I mean, I've had a few names in mind. One name that hasn't really been brought up yet, and this might make some people grin a little bit, is Riley Smith. You know, he's not criminally old. I believe he's under contract until 2025, so that's a guy that could provide some spark. You know, I saw Buchnevich was brought up earlier. He's more of a left wing, in my opinion. I know he can play both, but I don't know if there's something with his salary or whatnot. But the guy that I really like is Frank Vetrano coming back. That's the guy that I think could be a very realistic option. He sees the puck well, Brian. He does a good job being physical, and he overall just plays really well. And he's been a Ranger once before. You mentioned Tarasenko. I like him too. I'm also in agreement that Kakko should not be traded. He's playing his best hockey of the season right now, folks. His line with Brodzinski was instrumental to this winning streak, and we cannot forget that. And that's why Johnny got that 2-year extension. You know, 6 points in his last 8 games, wins over 50% of the faceoffs. That's a guy that you really need as glue. So having Kakko a part of that, I think Brian has helped him develop a little bit more this season.
Riley Smith's interesting. Again, he has to say. So my concern with both of those guys. Well, number one, for Riley Smith's in Pittsburgh, you know that if they try to make a deal with the Penguins, they're going to pay the premium. Somebody else wants Riley Smith, costs X. But there's surge pricing for the Rangers. So, you know, they'll make sure that they squeak as much as they can out of them. I don't dislike that type of a player. 32, but my concern will be the commitment into next year. Vetrano, the same, right? But then at least they could negotiate salary retention on both of those players if they wanted to. CBA is not going to allow them to do it on Tarasenko. So that is, you'd be really shooting everything you got left if you go just get Tarasenko back, because you have to find some other money you have to move from somewhere else. In conversation, I know that, you know, you have some thoughts on the impact of a guy like Matt Rempe, even in the short sample that we've seen. What's your take on really a kind of player the Rangers haven't had in a while? What I mean by that is, you know, Ryan Reeves was brought here to be that enforcer type guy, but they didn't really fight that much. Not that I think Rempe should drop the gloves every game, but it is an element they haven't had.
Yeah. Look, I believe, what is it, Brian? 3 fights in 5 games. I'm not going to sit here. He has more penalty minutes than time on the ice. But he's also putting up points, right? He's helping put up points. And again, this is another young guy that I saw your chart and you didn't have him on. You know, possibly, you know, post-deadline acquisitions. He brings that physicality like Ryan Reeves had. There's that element of the game that I think sometimes good teams are lacking, right? That's what separates a lot of good teams from great teams, you know, and I think it's multiple things too. He was putting up points in the minors. I do agree with PJ's comment there. And he's just a large player. Again, not really a guy that will put a lot of pressure on a defense as far as goal scoring goes, I think. But yeah, that's another good comment. Reeves' physicality with skills to score, since Reeves couldn't hit an open net. Yeah, I would say I agree with that. But I like him a lot. Brian, what do you think of Rempe? I know you're talking about it earlier, but I think he's a good player, but he's certainly expendable. I'm just happy that he's here for now, right? This might be like, not to use a football reference, but the Tommy DeVito of the Giants this season, right?
You can make some correlation to that. Yeah, I just
different scenarios, different situations, but
it feels to me very much like lightning in a bottle. Like, it feels that it's not sustainable, and that's, like, again, it's. I don't think he's on their playoff roster. Like, I just don't. I don't like. I think that they were trying to tweak things around with the fourth line, and you saw a couple of I think they were trying to find internal solutions to things. We're having to go to the outside, but they're all just band-aids because, like we said, if they do go get this right wing, everybody thinks they're going to get whoever it ends up being. If they do go get this center, whichever things that they're going to go get, it's going to take guys and slot them back down correctly, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like if you're turning your fourth line from Edstrom, Goodrow, and Rempe to some, I don't even care who plays center. Maybe it's Brodzinski, maybe it's Goodrow, whatever. To Brodzinski, Goodrow, and Vesey. That's a really, really effective fourth line, right? Because Brodzinski can play third line. Doesn't mean you want him to. It means that he can. They have no solution other than Kakko, but then again, that leaves a spot open. The advanced, and people forget about this, the advanced numbers for Kakko on the top line are really very good. I would not mind seeing Mika and Kreider broken up even to try it again. And this goes back to this doesn't matter because it's a regular season. Like, this is kind of where you should really be making sure, like, is that really what we need to be doing? Because you're not touching line 2. That's been there all year, right? Like, it is not a coincidence to me that there has been Trocheck's career year.
Mm-hmm.
Lafreniere really breaking out this year. Panarin having a career high in goals. I mean, they just work well together. Like all this Gallant didn't want to just put Laffy on the right and let him go. Like, he just wanted to do the 3-line stack of his wings. And it's just like, what the hell are you doing? Like, there's too much. The talent was there, right? I don't know if Kakko will ever develop just simply because of how things turned out here. I also be very concerned to send him somewhere else, frankly. I mean, that's just the kind of player that I think it's still there. I don't know if he's too good defensively. I mean, the wins and losses comparatively when he's the lineup versus not. Rempe's a great story. I just don't know that the story has any chapters past mid-April. I don't know that it has any. It might have chapters in late March. I don't know.
I mean, it's all up for debate. I mean, let's see how he does tomorrow night, right? I mean, this is another good comment. I like this comment a lot. Don't touch second line.
You can't. You can't, because it's been too good all year. Like, the results have just been stellar. The difference, if you go look at some of the numbers, the difference that you see. So the sins of the past with the power play have not really gotten entirely fixed, right? Like, they are reliant on it, which is a problem, because though you're not going to get those calls in the playoffs. But I think at some point, I mean, again, the 5 that they have been the 5 that they've had. I think Lafreniere would, if you were to take Trocheck off. So the problem is, Trocheck's your center because Mika can't win a faceoff. Right? That's really why Trocheck's on the power.
Reality, yep.
That's what it is. I mean, that's, and again, but you want Mika's shot, assuming he's going to be in his office on the left side of the net, right? So again, I think if they can balance the power play better, or they can get, I mean, Lafreniere has obviously shown the chemistry with Panarin specifically, so I think you can get some of that under your power play. Is that taking away from Trocheck? I mean, is having too many good players a good problem to have? Sure. But I think that it's getting a little stale. And I think that I would like to see them try some different looks in March, way before April hits, right? And they've got the points window, I think, to do it. Jonathan Quick is probably not the low key MVP of the team, right? But like, where the hell would they be without him, right? I mean, he's come in and just like really turned the clock back. I mean, Benny Allaire is just an unbelievable goaltending coach. What do you think is his impact? Having a veteran guy, 3 rings on his fingers. What does that do for a guy like Igor Shesterkin, who, he really wears the weight of the world on his shoulders? I mean, look, they don't do a very good job of keeping pucks away from him. They just try to make it a little easier to stop. Mm-hmm. He is the straw that stirs the drink. What do you think having that veteran does for someone like Igor?
Yeah, he makes it a lot better in several different categories. I think Igor, over his last 3 games, I mean, he's been seeing shots and attackers a lot better. I mean, he's allowed just 1 goal in each of his last 3 games. as compared to like Jonathan Quick, sometimes taking the back road and seeing what a guy can do in front of you definitely opens your eyes to different, techniques in net. And also his awareness too, right? Like pointing things out, communicating with the defense on the back line. When Igor communicates well, the Rangers play well. And, that's something that, you see commentators talk about all the time. I just really like the addition of Jonathan Quick because last year, the backup goaltender position, in my personal opinion, Brian, was lacking. And that's part of the reason why the Rangers didn't get as far as they would have liked. And I know Quick, you can argue he's been the MVP for, a few games here and there, but he's also allowed 4 in each of his last 2 starts. Not all his fault, but, he didn't look great in Columbus the other night. So, it'll probably be Igor back in net tomorrow, I would imagine. So overall, the chance to become the first team this season to reach 40 wins, depending on what happens tonight, is because of the goalie combination of Jonathan Quick and Igor Shesterkin. They have different strengths and they maximize each other very, very well. And I think Igor, for a guy who has been the goaltender for a few years now, all in all, he's really, really good when I think, my personal opinion, the puck is right in front of him or close to the net. He's very good at making stops. He's improved a lot with his eye vision on the snapshots too. So I'm intrigued to see, Brian, if this helps him a little bit, because obviously players go through slumps. They go through adversity, and you know how New York is. You're in a slump, they're calling for your head.
Sure. Patience is not exactly, it's not there in a bounty of it in New York. But that's the thing, right? And I think I came into the year thinking that Igor would play like the most games in the league, like mid 60s. That's probably not going to happen, and it's probably a good thing for him. But having a guy like Quick who you can put out there to play 3 games in a row, right? Like I don't think that was really an option for them last year, or the year before that, for that matter. Where the mental part of the game is not there, you got to just, Lundqvist was so focused all the time. Like that's what he was. And you always hear the stories of his teammates. Like he was always, the focus was just second to none. And that's what made him as good as he was. I mean, talent wise, obviously was always there, but it was the mental between the years. Right.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So we said a month ago, or the start of this month when we did the show. I mean, if the goaltending was a little bit better, their record in January would have just been a little bit better. Like it wasn't, there was some problems, but he let up 3 goals on 9 shots against Vegas. Like you're not going to come back from that, but he's bounced back in a huge way. So like, I go back to this because I mean, you see this too. I mean, obviously review and preview, wonderful stuff that you guys do. I mean, you see comment, a lot of New York stuff central, but you do everything. The idea that, they're not going to make a trade or they shouldn't make a trade. Like,
right.
I don't follow the thought process because I look at a team that is led offensively by 31 and 32-year-olds, one of which having a career year, by the way. And I think to myself, like, what are you waiting for? Right? Like, what do you just want to kind of be in purgatory the whole time? Like, do you not want to take a shot while you can get it? So like you mentioned a Frank Vetrano, again, look, Vetrano played really well with Mika and Kreider, right? Okay. Like I'm not opposed to that. It just everything's got a price. Like I'm not going to overpay for something.
Mm-hmm.
My larger concern for that, well, like I said, so if you fast forward this, and again, I know I'm putting the cart before the horse. Let's say they get Vetrano. You go into next year. You're pretty much telling Brennan Othmann he's staying in the minors again because there's no spot. Because at that point, you have your lefts. For your top 9 lefts would again be Kreider, Panarin, and Cooley, and your top 9 rights would be Kakko, Lafreniere, and whoever you bring in, like a Vetrano, because of the term. I don't think Tarasenko is likely. Like I don't think that they're going to bring in a $5 million player. I think if they found a way out of Barclay Goodrow, like that opens up a lot of options. I just don't think that's going to happen. But they're not going to sit on their hands. I mean, I can't wrap my head around that. I can't wrap my head around the idea of somebody wanting them to sit on their hands, right? Like everybody always wants to hold on to, and it's throughout the years, right? Now it's the Brett Berards, and the Adam Sikoras and the Bryce McConnell Barkers and all these guys that, like, you know, they maybe someday might be a piece that you play in on your second line. Maybe, hopefully, there's. If you can, if you just hold on to all these things and these ifs and maybes, by the time the ifs and maybes become yeses or nos, your top end's gone. So the idea that they wouldn't trade Perreault is great, because I mean, that's a building block, right? I mean, there will when we get to the other side for Mika, Kreider, and Panarin, there will be a down period for the Rangers, and that's okay. Like that's cycles in sports, and that's perfectly fine. But you're starting to see what's the next iteration look like, and you have pieces. That's great. Huge, big fan of that. If you could bring in, let me ask you this question.
Mm-hmm.
I think you were watching before. I didn't get your answer to it. Do we agree that Gabe Perreault is untouchable?
Yes.
Okay.
I do.
Okay. And I again, that guy should have gone a lot higher in the draft. Perfect. He's playing great. I'm happy with that. If the right deal comes along for Othmann, is he an untouchable in your eyes, or would you entertain the conversation?
I would entertain the conversation. See, the thing is, right now the Rangers are in a very interesting spot, right? They're playing so well. You go all in. There's times where you're going to trade top prospects. Fans are going to get mad. That's how it is. That's the trade-off of winning in sports, right? And I think we've seen Tampa do it in the past. And Rich just said it. We have to win now. It's been 30 years, right? It's been so long. So, I mean, I would love to see a Stanley Cup win for the first time. So I think if the price is right, no pun intended, you do it. You do it. You listen to offers. You don't force your hand, though, right? You don't force your hand for a guy who you think might not be a fit. Like if option 1 goes and option 2 goes, and like you're contemplating doing it for option 3, then I think you pull back and keep him. Then you don't do it. That's my thought process on that. Not to give a drawn out answer, but you kind of get where I'm saying.
No, there is validity to the idea of being the last buyer in the store too.
Mm-hmm.
Like at some point, the bigger names. I mean, you look what Sean Monahan was traded for. Like some of the deals that have already happened. We're not. That is just idiocy to me, right? Like what Vancouver paid. I mean, look, it's a good player. Lindholm's a good player, but they gave up a lot. Like it's just you can't. Going all in is fine, but you do it strategically. Again, it doesn't mean that you just blow your wallet. It means that if the right player is available, look, my pipe dream is Jay Gensel. It's not going to happen, and I'm at terms with that because, A, they can't sign him for next year. They just don't have the money. B, Pittsburgh will bend them over for Jay Gensel. Bend them, and guess what? That's what they should do, right? So I'm not going to, I can't hate on it. Would love Jay Gensel. Think it'd be a perfect fit. Not going to happen. If it came down to leaving Kakko on the first line and filling a third line, again, it depends on who it is. Like we get like you kind of get like tunnel vision into, they got to do this. I think they should go after a first line winger for no other reason than they have the cap space to do it. Like if Hedl was there, right? If Hedl didn't get hurt, which would solve a lot of problems, by the way. I hope he comes back next year. Then you have less money, but you have less needs to fill too, right? Like then you can go and give your number 1 pick for a winger, move on, you're fine. I think they don't touch the defense at all, other than maybe adding a depth defenseman.
Mm-hmm.
But everything Frank Saravalli today said they're going to be the most aggressive team. And again, like there's nothing. I don't look at anything in their system outside of Gabe Perreault, and I say like that. There's no way you can move that player. Because they're all ifs and buts, right? The same way that the Rangers acquired all that volume of ifs and buts, maybes from Tampa Bay, they all turned into no's, right? The ifs and maybes all turned into no's, and that was just in retrospect becomes a terrible trade, right? At the time, it was fine; nobody questioned it, other than the fact you gave up a little bit early on Miller. I don't think we see a 94 deadline. Is my point. I guess that's what I'm trying to get to, where you see 5 pieces moved. Like to go get a The Mike Gardner for Glenn Anderson trade, like there's no corollary I can find that would make that sense. I don't think that something like that. Like I don't think they go after the grizzled veterans here. Like I think they know specifically what they need, and that's what they're going to target. Like I don't think that they're just going to. Keanu Miller gets a lot of hate. I get it. Sometimes he's great and sometimes he's not.
Yeah.
There's no realistic deal that makes sense other than to go get Jacob Chychrun from Ottawa in like almost like a 1-for-1 type thing, or like a bigger deal of that. I don't see that. I think that I think it was Visper Cogliano who said this earlier in the year, like they've kind of like cast their lot. Like this is their core. Like you really can't break it up. These guys have no movement clauses and big contracts. You can't move. Like this team's going to win or lose. Like you're not going to see a massive change. Even if they don't win this year, I don't think you see a massive change. I think that they try to run it back again next year. It just gets harder because of the age. I guess the analogy I'll give you as a Giants fan is, in Eli Manning's last couple of years, like they tried their best. Like, okay, Saquon Barkley is a great pick for a team that doesn't need anything else and is trying to extend the career of their quarterback. Same with Pittsburgh with Najee Harris and Ben Roethlisberger, right?
Yep.
Ends up not working because it just didn't work. For the Rangers, I just don't think that I think they have their eye on the short term, but they're not going to blow up the long term just to be aggressive. Like they're not going to be aggressive for aggressive sake. Would you agree?
Well, that's the statement, right? Compete for today, build for tomorrow, simultaneously at the same time. And I think that's what good GMs do. You open my eyes to Vetrano a little bit more through, your recent statements, Brian, saying he's not just a rental player. A guy like maybe an Alex Wenberg would be. I've kind of been not too happy about the rumors of Yanni Gourde. I know his name's been thrown around. I don't think that's a good option for the Rangers specifically, maybe another team. But Rich again, yeah. Got a feeling he's going to pull something crazy none of us are thinking of. That's probably right. I mean, there's a good chance they trade for somebody we haven't mentioned once tonight.
Sure.
I mean, that's the beauty of the game.
Who was talking Tarasenko last year?
No one.
Like that's what, like I said,
I
so Sean made what I thought was a really insightful comment. Like these guys that everybody says the Rangers are going to go get, they don't get any of them. The only one that they got was Patrick Kane because it was like this very, very specific road that they were the only team he was going to go
that
to.
For a while,
Which he looks great, by the way. He'd be really good on the first line right now. Chris Munch got to go all in, give up Zach Jones, Othmann necessary, leave Kakko Laffy alone. So that line 2 is the best. I mean, they've been real. I mean, you can't argue it. Like Panarin's every single player on the year is having a career year. That's not an accident, in my opinion, right? Again, to me, I would not be as dismissive of moving Brennan Othmann in the right deal. That's just me. I think they're probably not going to, but I don't know that any Scott Lawton in Philadelphia, like, would he be a good third line center option? Sure. Do you want to give up a first round pick for a third line center? Probably not. Like, I don't think that's their move. Like, I think if you're going to use the one, go ahead. I don't care. Spend your one.
Yeah.
But do it to fill the higher end need. You can get by with Brodzinski. I don't want to, but I can get by. I don't really have a right wing solution. Like, I need to figure that out. Whether it's first or third, or you get guys who can flip around. I don't know, but there need to be as aggressive as possible for something like that. That's where I'd like to see them go big game hunting, frankly. And the one should very, very be of it. Should be whatever. The picks don't matter. You know what? Send no one to the draft this year. Trade all do the Ricky Williams. Trade everybody. I don't even care. Yeah. You want to go all in? Go all in with your lottery tickets. Give the tickets away.
Yeah.
That's where I would be. You and I are going to the game tomorrow, which I'm very, very excited about. Got dinner plans.
We are.
I'm curious. I think you might be too, as to how they're going to bounce back, because now the streak's over, right? So now it's not the Undertaker, right? But now the streak's over. So now you can kind of that pressure's off our shoulders of trying to get the 11th win, whatever. They probably blow them out tomorrow night would be my guess. But what's your take on I guess it's not I wouldn't say it's a revenge game, but I don't know. People get all mad. Oh, they lost to Columbus. Okay, like it happens. Like it's hockey.
Yeah. All in all, I think the Rangers win. Brodzinski, we talked about him earlier. 6 points in his last 8 games. It'll be exciting to see him, especially on that face-off line. Mika, Trocheck, whoever it is, Brian. I mean, 2 great setup guys all season long. Panarin as well. I just don't know if Columbus is going to be able to do it twice and offset. The Rangers are angry that they lost the game. They could care less about the streak. They're mad that they lost the game, right? Because they want to be on a hot note getting into the playoffs and win in the playoffs. So I think the Rangers win by 2 or 3 tomorrow night. And that might sound a little bit generous for the Rangers, but yeah, Kevin bounce back 5-1 win. I can totally see that too. I want to give Columbus a little bit more credit. I would say like 4-1, 5-2, something along those lines, Brian.
I don't think that they don't ask how, they ask how many. Like, I don't think you need a blowout win. I think you would like to just play better. I think that they would like to just play better defensively. Jonathan Quick was not at his best. I don't say he lost them the game. I think they didn't really. Their just offense has just not been. But again, they played 5 games in 8 days. Like this little 2-day break, I think will do them wonders. Schedule gets a little bit tougher, but I'm not really concerned about it. The interesting thing to me, and I like to look at this as something like an indicator for me, is regulation wins, right? Because at the end of the day, there is no 3-on-3. There is no shootout once the calendar turns to mid-April, right? And they are one behind Florida for regulation wins in the league. To put that in perspective, Pittsburgh has 22. The Islanders have 16. Pittsburgh's behind the Islanders in the standings, right? Like a lot of these overtime merchants, even Boston, right? Like Boston is 34. So they've won 34 games out of 60, which is one more than Toronto's won and 2 less. They have 14 overtime or shootout losses. So like you got 14 points there. Like of all the teams in the league, like so we go back to someone said Florida was like the best team. So they have 4 overtime losses, 30 like that. The Rangers are on par with these teams. I look at some of these just, I don't know. Like I don't think that your ability to win a shootout is going to help you in April. It does nothing. I don't see that at all. As we wrap up, any last thoughts that you have about anything at all, Ranger related or whatever?
Kreider scores, and I'm just hoping for a better game. Excited to go there with you. Should be a lot of fun.
It's a blast.
Much appreciative of the invite and the invite tonight on the show as well. This Absolutely. Has been awesome. Talking and Rangers again, hockey.
Yeah. Tell BlueTruth fans where they can find the Review and Preview Network.
So for some reason, if you want to catch my content, feel free to check us out at Review and Preview, as Brian has there. We're on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter at Review and Preview Sports. We also have a YouTube channel at Review and Preview. And I do a Giants podcast as well on the side. I know a lot of Rangers fans are, crossover Giants fans, which makes a lot of sense. I know Brian might not be one of them, but I know a lot of you might be.
I have my
check us out on YouTube and Instagram at Big Blue Avenue, doing a free agency preview of all things New York Football Giants. And we got the color scheme. That's why.
Sure.
Giants Rangers. It all makes sense. But Big Blue Avenue on YouTube and Instagram, that's where you can find us going through some NFL draft prospects, off-season content, going over all different types of positions that might fit the New York Football Giants. But now it's off-season. It's all about hockey.
That's right.
Let's go Rangers.
True or false? Daniel Jones starts week 1.
True.
True or false? The Giants used their pick on a quarterback in the first round.
In the first round?
Yeah.
False.
Okay. because one might not mean the other, because you can always have your quarterback sit.
They could always trade up, and you know, I don't want to make this a Giants show, but you get where I'm coming from. They might add competition via free agency for him coming off the injury, and Jones is aware of that.
Mm-hmm.
And it might be the better option because their necks are on the line. You don't want your necks on the line with an injury-plagued quarterback or a rookie quarterback, whoever it might be.
Right.
But yeah, if you my take on Daniel Jones might be different from yours, or Saquon Barkley, Xavier McKinney, whoever it might be, check out my thoughts. I have some interesting ones. Brian and I
yes,
may not totally agree on number 8 in blue, but amongst other things, I think we line up.
If any of our fans are going to be at the Ranger game tomorrow night, you should absolutely come to row 115. Section 115, row 22 will be the 2 in the Rangers jersey. You'll easily find us, obviously. All right, bud. I will catch you tomorrow.
Awesome, Brian. Thank you so much. Catch you tomorrow.
Pleasure to have you on.
All right. Take care.
Take care.
Bye.
That's Tom Scavetta from the Review and Preview Network. Again, those guys do great stuff. We're Sportsbox is very happy to be involved with them. So as we wrap up, I will be attending tomorrow night's game. I'll be there with Tom. So if you're there, come say hi. I will also be attending the March 17th game against the Islanders, which is the first game for my little boy who is 6 years old. My wife and my dad will be coming as well. So it's going to be really cool to have 3 generations of blue in the world's most famous arena. I get kind of a little emotional thinking about it, frankly, because this team means everything. The history that we have, the bond that all of us share is the love of this team. And, yes, have they had a glorious history? No, but maybe that's probably why if they ever won one again, it would mean everything. Right. So very, very, very excited about having the family there for the Islanders game, and the Islanders stink. So they're going to win that game. And as we said earlier, BlueTruth will keep you up to date with anything that the Rangers do. If we're not reporting it, it didn't happen. Don't fall for these Twitter things. It's not, if you believe Twitter, they got Frank Vetrano 3 times last week, right? So call it what it is. Major moves, if they get that top line right wing, there might be an emergency broadcast, so keep your eyes out for that. Thank you all so very much, for watching tonight. Thanks to Tom for Review and Preview for jumping on with us. And thank you for the over 8,500 of you who like and follow BlueTruth on Facebook. This has been just a ton of fun to build, and thank you for helping me build it. And we'll be at 10K before we know it. And that's pretty cool. As someone who built up a podcast network from 0 to 25K in a much longer period of time, to see the growth that we've seen on just a Ranger specific endeavor, it's awesome. Absolutely awesome. I can't thank you guys enough, because you make that happen, right? I can sit here and talk to myself, but no one's going to listen. It's the interactions that we have that make it so much fun. So thank you very, very much. Listen, let's go Rangers. If you're there tomorrow night, come say hi. And as soon as something breaks, we'll let you know. Let's go. Go Rangers.